Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I guess we'll call the meeting to order, and I'll start with the land acknowledgement. This meeting takes place in the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. I'll call to approval of the agenda 3.1 from September 5th, 2024 agenda. Moved that the working group approve the agenda for the September 5th, 2024 meeting as presented. Motion carried unanimously. Approval of the minutes, 4.1, August 1st, 2024, working group minutes. Move that the working group approve the minutes from August 1st, 2024 meeting as presented. Motion carried unanimously. New business, 5.1, introductory roundtable. Reading. Going a little less formal today.
Do we want to put this in PowerPoint format or presentation format?
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you everyone for having us here today. We're the 21 FSP and Tool Tourism Consulting team working on the Sustainable Cultural Tourism Plan. We've had a very busy fall. We've done a lot of engagement. I think we spoke with most of you speaking in this room, so it's nice to see everyone again. And today we're going to give an update on where we're at in the project, some key findings and themes that are emerging for the development of the strategy, and then also get your thoughts around our plans for next steps around community engagement.
Great.
Anything else, Mary?
No. Specific dates will be put forward on a few action items, just as a heads up, that we are looking to stay very much on track from a timeline perspective, and with the exception of one interview with who we feel are your extraordinary residents of Lunenburg, Ms. Ritzy and Senator Moore. We will be meeting with them the first part of January, but everyone else we will wrap up next week.
Yeah. All right. So just in terms of the agenda for today overall, so well, we just did our little welcome, so welcome. Thank you for being here. And then I'll go over the purpose of our portion of the scope of work for the strategy. And then we'll give our presentation, project progress update and emerging themes. And then we'll hand it over to Mark, who's going to do some housekeeping items around the committee. And then any other business closing comments. So that's what to expect today. We can do next. So in terms of the Sustainable Cultural Tourism Plan, in terms of our project status, so we've completed project initiation and planning in early September. We moved right into research and data collection. That's still in progress, but mostly complete. We would say about 90% complete at this stage. We've completed a trends analysis, sector analysis. We've engaged with, well, we'll get into the details, but we've engaged with over 20 individuals, and some of those were group engagements, so likely closer to 30 site visits. And we also did bilateral discussions with each working group member as well. So it's been a busy fall, and that's where we're at currently. We're also we have drafted an engagement plan for community engagement, which is an important component of strategy development. And we aim to do a survey and a community session to get input on that. That will be an interactive station-based approach, subject to confirmation with you folks today. So we'll go over that a bit later. Once that's complete, we'll move into strategy development. So strategic vision development, plan drafting, and then into implementation and capacity building, and then final plan development and presentation. So that's where we're at in the in the overall project plan. So still early stages, but quite a bit of work has been completed at this point. Anything else, Mary? No. All right.
Travel trends?
Yeah. Yes.
Travel trends, Aim and I talked about this a lot because everything we hear these days is post-COVID, post-COVID. And what's unique about the town of Lunenburg is lots of key destinations we're talking about, the shift in air access. And was that going to impact Lunenburg? And when you start looking at an overall travel trend perspective of visitors who come to Nova Scotia, it's usually between 60 and 65% are from within our region. And so we really are our primary target market. The reason we look to try and attract beyond that is that dollar spend on a per day basis. So in looking at airlift, and as much as it's decreased, it's not really impacting a whole lot where we are right here. And within the South Shore itself, the last 2 years, there's been a substantial increase in what the occupancy rates are, regardless of the fact that for a 2-year period, you were down 6,000 room nights. So travel trends as it relates to access, you're still in great shape there. What we've looked to do is align Lunenburg and who you are, and congratulations publicly on being the Tourism Award winner. Wonderful for your Lunenburg walking tour. I just heard about it. Nova Scotia targets 3 distinct visitor types. And Tom, you may remember when we had our meeting back in September that we were talking about culture tourism. And I shared at that point that just a tremendous piece of research was done by the national body called Destination Canada. And they were able to take a look at each one of us and be able to hone into, there's 9 different types of us. We all want to be unique and we all are unique. But when it comes to what makes us tick, what is it that we love to do when we travel? There are all kinds of different segregations according to that, or segmentations. So naturally, Nova Scotia, and it fits very, very poignantly with Lunenburg, we target what's called the cultural explorer, the authentic experiencer, and the free spirit. The 2 top are very much aligned, obviously, with everything that says we're Lunenburg. The difference between the cultural explorer and the authentic experiencer, they both want to be off track. They don't want to be given too much as far as a set itinerary goes, but the authentic likes to not so much be solo factor. The cultural is fine with being solo. When this EQ, this Explorer Quotient first came out, I took the test and it was rolled out actually through Parks Canada as the pilot. And the outcome was anybody working in tourism should be one of those 2 categories. You should be interested. You should be excited. You should want to go off the beaten track. You shouldn't want to, I wouldn't probably be great on a motor coach tour across the country. A little too structured. And then the third is the free spirit. The free spirit tends to be a younger demographic, which we're all looking to try and target these days. Love social media, love selfies, love self-promotion, all good. And as much as it was aligned initially with what we called our long haul market, our Asia Pacific market, it's now very much honed into the millennial market and those that are even younger. So when we talk about our trends for Lunenburg, you're very, very poised to align with who Nova Scotia tourism targets, and it only makes sense. If there was a poster child for Nova Scotia tourism, I think you would all agree that it very much could be Lunenburg. And I really like that I didn't know any of you really when I walked through the door on September the 5th. And now I get to say I've had the privilege of talking to all of you and can have conversations with all of you. So very special. Labor force trends, huge, huge conversation. It has been. I started in the sector in 1989 and they talked about labor shortage. And now all of a sudden it's hit a crisis point. And we've looked at some good statistics and broken it down and gotten specific on what does the labor shortage look like going forward into the next decade for Lunenburg. So some research that'll come out of Tourism HR, which is the national body on trending, and hopefully solutions on what some of those opportunities may be to be able to help mitigate what could potentially be happening here in Lunenburg. Your ecosystem and your alignment with your trends, as I just said, you've got tremendous alignment because you've got tremendous culture, you've got tremendous experiences and festivals. And we talk about products having 4 Ps. And the one thing that really, really resonated with me with every single conversation and us that we had with everyone, for Lunenburg, it needs to have 5 Ps, and the word passion needs to be included. Because the absolute passion that comes from every single one of you when you talk about where you live and what you're doing and what you have the chance to experience. There's some parking issues. There's, it's a little confined at times. But as I once upon a time said to my old mentor, the CEO of Northern Ireland Tourism, man, you became a bucket destination and you've got bombings. We got a few potholes. We're good. So the key ingredients to a sustainable cultural tourism plan are certainly here, and the trending certainly you align with on who wants to come here. Frank's not here. He's off someplace, but we do know that the reason Frank and his wife moved here is that they were checking out. They were looking for a place that was just like here. And they looked for a really long time. And when they came here, they knew that this was it. And while he's not here to hear me reiterate this, it was really poignant that he was our first person that we had the chance to talk to. And so as a come from away, as a resident, as a former marketer, as a brand specialist, he really laid a foundation of wow, because there were all these elements about who he is, what he does, and why he chose to be here that were very much from that outside lens that looks in. And for we who have worked in our sector, we always hope that that little appetizer that people have when they come for a vacation here, that they want to come back for the full course and they want to come back here and stay. So all of you, almost everyone in this room, we have the chance to talk to Friends of Blockhouse next week. You shared how you truly feel, what you see as strengths, weaknesses, challenges, vision positive, vision 10 years. And with that, so far, we've had 4 emerging themes. Now there's all kinds that goes with these 4 emerging themes, and Aim's bringing up talking points, but the first one, and we'll touch on best practices and case studies in a minute, but the first one, loud and clear, hands down, is UNESCO. The second, that didn't come as strongly in our first meeting and through the documents and even through the RFP, was the working waterfront. And it was fascinating to talk to some partners that were just committed. People don't even know about the UNESCO. They come here to experience the waterfront. And so when you look at those combination of assets, what we heard, yeah, the better promotion. Anybody that I speak to about Lunenburg, there's kind of that resonating comment. My gosh, you're popping at the seams. And what promotions do you do? How collaborative are you as a group? Who's there to help you do that? There's a website that's not quite there, and so there's partnership and collaboration opportunity. The culture groups and the festival groups, there's partnership there, but it's not quite yet collaborative. So we're looking at, how do you get there? Diversifying revenue resources, supporting economic growth. I think it's hands down a marketing levy is going to come into being. But what else can be done to generate revenue that can support that, recognizing that infrastructure and maintaining infrastructure really has to be a number one thought from everyone outside this room. Councillor, you excluded. Oh, our 2 councillors. My apologies. And Deputy Mayor, my congratulations on that. Yes, I think it spoke so beautifully to have passion choose to run and win and be in such harmony on same page on go forward and how important Lunenburg is and her UNESCO designation. So 4 key themes, as I've just mentioned, and you'll get those from a PowerPoint perspective, but you'll also have a huge document when we do have the chance to come together again on what the drill down of the key findings are that have led us to this thus far. Bear in mind, there's a community survey and there's a community session taking place. all kinds of other feedback we'll be able to receive. There'll be another 6 interviews being done. And where they all fit with this, or if there's changes to that, that's what we have the opportunity to learn from all of you. How did I do with following? That's why
Great.
I'm not good with, that's why you all received a questionnaire when we met, because for me to try and stay on track hasn't been my strong suit. But hopefully that kind of allows you to get a sense.
Yes, and I think you covered it, Mary. The only thing I would add is just on the adapting to emerging challenges and trends. We heard quite a bit about the need to keep climate change in mind, balancing heritage and growth, balancing growth with resident quality of life wasn't something we heard quite a bit. So just as the world is changing and everyone is experiencing disruption on every level the past few years, just keeping that in mind where the sustainable within sustainable cultural tourism and making sure that growth doesn't create challenges for those who live here and for the environment as well. So that's the only thing I would add,
I was
but
just
I
checking
think.
to see if you were paying attention to what I said.
Oh, okay. And yes, as Mary said, there's a full report with lots of details in it. We're keeping it high level today for the purposes of this meeting, but we will be sharing a what we heard report with the committee to review and provide us feedback on. So that's what we heard. All right, and the next slide, community engagement planning. So what we're hoping to get out of today is just to share with you our plan for community engagement, because that's our next phase now that we've wrapped, we haven't wrapped stakeholder engagement. Mary still has 6 people to talk to, but we've talked to about 30. But the next phase is community engagement. So that's a really important part, is to make sure that those who live in Lunenburg have a chance to have a say in what will be included in this strategy and the go forward plan. So we have drafted a survey. We plan to send that to Mark to circulate to the working group for feedback. We're hoping to do that today and then have feedback by hopefully the end of this week from you folks. It's a long survey, so we didn't want to present it here today, but you'll have a chance to review it thoroughly, and then we would be able to launch it as early as Monday. And hoping to keep that open until, recognizing Christmas, people are busy, they have parties to go to, keeping that open until January 9th. With lots of promotion, we'll be providing, we'll work with Mark on this, but we have social media promotions that we can provide to help get the word out about the survey. But obviously, you folks are a valuable asset as well in sharing that with your networks.
Constituents.
And constituents. And then in terms of the community engagement session, where the survey would end January 9th, we would want that incorporated into what we have planned for the community session. We want the community session to be really engaging and interactive. We plan to have a station-based approach with 4 stations with various themes to draw out input and feedback from community on various aspects of strategy development, and then reconvene everyone together as a group with a facilitated discussion on what we heard at each station. And it'll look at things like priorities, what are the strengths of Lunenburg, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities as well. And yeah, we would be hoping to have that community engagement session the week of January 13th. And that would allow us to stay on track to move into strategy development for February, March, and then April into finalization. And then our goal is to have the sustainable cultural tourism plan ready for the launch of tourism season, which is when a lot of the funding opportunities become available. So that will support getting into the growth mode as soon as possible.
Thoughts or questions so far?
I have a question in regards to the community engagement, because that's very important to me
Yeah.
and to, fellow people on the board here. So you said you have different stations being set up. It seems really formal, but I'm can't wait to hear your ideas on it. Is there a specific demographic that you're hoping to bring to the table? Because I feel that in our community, it should be all ages, and we should be engaging with people in our schools, and I have some great ideas as well, going through the GMIST Activate program and how they do community-led initiatives, and how we can engage in a fun manner, but still get the information and statistics that you need. So I'd love to be able to speak with you further at our next meeting.
Fantastic. And you can be critical in helping get that word out.
Absolutely.
And as Aim might speak, it can be modified depending on the number of individuals that do wish to participate.
Okay,
And so, yeah.
And our station-based approach is really, it's a World Cafe style of community engagement that we've used in the past on similar strategies. And it allows for smaller group conversations, which allows people to get their ideas out more than if they're intimidated in a large group setting. But also it's more accessible because will have activities. If you don't feel like talking in a group setting, you can write it on a Post-it, put it on a vision board. We'll have visioning
Mhm.
stations that have like images of parks or festivals, and people can link between what their vision for Lunenburg is in terms of cultural tourism and images that they see in front of them. So we aim to have a very inclusive and accessible community engagement session. That's always our goal, but also to make it interactive and fun as well. We also use Mentimeter, which is a live polling platform as well. So people can use a QR code on their phone and see results in real time about what people's priorities are. So our intention isn't to make it formal. We want it to be like very loose and for people to feel comfortable and willing to share their thoughts and their ideas. So that's our goal, but nothing is set in stone at this point. That's why we haven't put it up on a screen. We have a drafted community engagement plan that really lays everything out. And we plan to get feedback from the working committee on that plan before we launch it. So that's just kind of our general idea because that's what's worked well for us in the past, but we're totally open to committee input on that.
And it will be going out simultaneous with the survey.
Yes.
thank you very much.
Yeah, no
Pleasure.
problem.
Love having a question.
Yeah, any other questions?
Next.
All right. So next steps.
Case studies.
Oh, sorry, case studies. Right. So for case studies, we have gone back and forth on what we should be looking at based on what we're hearing. So we want to align the best practices and analog communities that we're looking at and success stories with the trends that we're hearing out of Lunenburg. So we've gone back and forth a couple times on what the topic should be that we're exploring. We started with UNESCO, and we are proposing that we continue to look into communities that have successfully promoted and leveraged their UNESCO designation. Feel free to jump in there, Mary.
That was the first call that we did as your team, that you contracted, was with the consultant who had done the national study on UNESCO's. And I remembered the question that I wanted hopefully an answer to was, what other jurisdictions have been successful in funding that were part of this study and that were similar to Lunenburg? And the answer was none. And Lunenburg is very unique, as we know, from a funding perspective outside of the Parks Canada family. But Lunenburg is moving forward positively with Parks Canada coming in early in the year, which is great. But the one thing that we heard repeatedly was, unless you know it's a UNESCO, you don't know that it's a UNESCO. So several of you gave us fantastic suggestions. Lots of them were New England based. One was probably a little island across the Northumberland. But what it boiled down to was, how are destinations with UNESCO designations really showcasing that they are UNESCO? So we've looked at case studies that are, right now there are 2 that are looking at truly admirable, successful working waterfronts, small, coming from destinations where culture is significant. And we've looked at, from a high level perspective, 5 that are really successful in presenting their UNESCO designation. So again, you'll have the opportunity to look at what our suggestions are before we drill out deeply what they're doing, but just to see where the alignment is. And from that, we'll look forward to your recommendations on what you wish to have us drill out a little bit deeper. If they aren't what you think we should be looking at, then we'll happily go back and revisit. But for what we're hearing and what we envision in 10 years, this extraordinary UNESCO site being, it's really important that everybody knows that it's here and that she's yours.
And another set of case studies that we were considering too is around working waterfronts.
The 2.
So we're looking at 2 international examples of working waterfronts that have really shined in terms of growing tourism. So that will be in the package of documents before our next meeting, which will be more of a workshop style where we go over our produced content. So in terms of next steps for us, like we mentioned, community engagement is our next focus. So we're hoping we're kind of in mid-December, but we're hoping next week to launch that. It doesn't take us long at all to program a survey, so it's all drafted and ready for your review. Distribution of our draft documents to the working group. So that includes the case study framework and everything else that we spoke about today. Working group session. So this is something I think Mark is going to touch on this a little bit more, perhaps when you talk about just kind of the structure of this committee. But we intend to do more of a working session style session with you folks to get feedback in a less formal setting. We'll finalize the engagement. So Mary still has about 6 people to connect with this month and then 1 in the new year. Just based on schedules and availability, that's how it worked out. We'll finalize the case studies. We'll provide a benchmark report based on that research. We'll compile phase 2 and 3 findings, which is the engagement and the secondary research, into a comprehensive tourism diagnostic report. And then we'll plan and execute the community session and then get into strategy development. So those are our immediate next steps. Any questions about the project so far? Anything you heard today? Next steps?
I'll weigh in if I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm the new one to the group, so I'm not sure I even know everyone. I know most of you. But it's wonderful to have this project being undertaken. And I guess I'm just backing up a bit to the survey work. I mean, I've been involved in these kinds of project developments previously, and community engagement is always a huge challenge. And as Candace mentioned, you know, getting to the various demographics. And I'm wondering, you mentioned, you know, us circulating as well, but aside from just online, are there other avenues that are being pursued, or that you have, like, even like pen and paper? Does it?
Yeah, we can certainly, and we have done that in the past as well. Like
Yeah.
we can put the
Translate.
survey into a written format and leave it at town hall for people to pick up and fill out, and we can program the survey for them. So that's certainly, sorry, Mary.
That's okay.
Certainly an option. Yes, we want to make it as accessible as possible, but typically we work with the municipality to use their promotion channels to get the word out about the survey, because they're the most closely connected to the residents. So we would hope Town of Lunenburg Facebook group, things like that, any email lists, and then also leveraging the large amount of organizations represented on this committee, but also the people that we've engaged with as well. So quite a few different avenues to get out the word about it. So that's our plan. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's
if you have other ideas, let us know.
Thank you. Yeah. I know and often in hospitality, the younger demographic is in the staff component.
Mm,
And so if there's a way to tap into that for those who would have access to those folks, I think
Absolutely.
that would be really valuable. I found personally, and this may have been touched on in previous discussions, but staff are hard to come by, so they're cherished, but they're not terribly well versed in the community. You know, they come from other areas. Sometimes they come from far away to work here for the summer, and they don't have a very good grasp of the community themselves. So that doesn't get communicated. So
mm,
anyway, just a thought to keep in mind.
for sure. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful if all staff that are hired knew the first 3 days of their employment is exclusively on their destination immersion and what they can learn. And, you know, whether, Liz, it's you and all of your extraordinary team that are supporting. I know when I met with the CAO and she was sharing elements of the history of Lunenburg, and I said, does Liz know this? Does her team know this? She said, well, I don't know. And it's just, there's so much that every single one of you hold that might not be part of that full circle of who Lunenburg is. So yes, Great point. C'est tout pour nous?
So do.
That's it. Thank you very much. And we'll have another date before we leave.
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, Tom, yes.
Sorry. There. Have you got a location for the January 13th session yet?
We haven't begun logistics planning yet
Okay.
with the town.
Well, I have a suggestion. The go-to place is the fire hall.
Mhm.
But it's the least historic and least cultured place in the town for doing something like this. So it also has a little bit of baggage from previous sessions, which are, have had various successes, but I would suggest that it be either a more historic or more cultured location, just to be in the right atmosphere.
Hmm.
And thinking out loud, maybe Zucker Wharf, maybe the museum, maybe the Lunenburg School of the Arts, maybe the Lunenburg Art Gallery would be the first four that I could think of that would be suitable locations. Even the Silver Building, which is generally empty, might be a possibility. But I think all of those would shift this community conversation away from previous conversations that have taken place at the fire hall.
Great, great. Thank you.
I'll add the academy,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
which has an elevator, so I mean, yeah, elevator, so I think it's really accessible.
Thank, 2 points for the academy.
Yeah, we did a tour of the academy. We're just blown away. What an amazing space. So yeah, it's
Thank
part,
you.
that was part of our site visits. We got tours of lots of places with our engagement. So it was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And so from a formal, Merry Christmas and season's greetings to all. It's a wonderful time of the year.
Thanks, Mary and team.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Thanks, Amy. Before I did want to get into just a couple of more logistical kinds of discussion, but I just wondered, since Manny's here, and I know this meeting's more focused on 21 FSP's work, and we're looking towards maybe a more similar type of discussion maybe next month with ASBB. But since did you want to take a couple minutes just to sort of just give a brief, I mean, we definitely have enough time, but it's up to you if you just wanted to give a bit of an update of where you're at. I know it's a different timeline, that kind of thing. Is that okay? Okay, yeah, if you could use that.
We went through this last time. Thank you again for the presentations, Amy. I think that what I've learned from just talking with Amy and just the presentation today, there's a lot of work that is input for ASBB from the strategy that's being strategized. So I'll give you a quick update on where we are at. This was perfect timing for us to work with Nova Scotia Tourism and get some data. So we both talked to Stats Canada and we were able to get some surveys about, where folks are coming from, how many folks are coming. It's customized data. They don't want to release it because there's not too many numbers. So, they want to be accurate, but we're still working with them. Tourism Nova Scotia, we've been able to get data from them. So, we have things like how much folks are spending on food and beverage, on accommodations, on travel. So we have some average numbers there. I think the survey was done among 709 people. So that's a decent kind of number. So we've gathered that. We have obviously the model going. So what we're hoping to do is when FS21 is wrapping up, we have like some preliminary numbers for the economic impact. So it's going to be the current numbers. And what we think that is going to be incredibly useful from this study is the scenarios. So there's going to be some economic community session scenarios that come out, like what would be the future of, culture and heritage here. We'd use those scenarios to trace out, okay, if, we did look out for our UNESCO heritage, we did look out for infrastructure, what that could be like. What could the economic impact be in addition to what it is today? So that would be a really good advocacy piece for, as I understand, maintaining our infrastructure here in the town. So, and I'll work with Laura too, closely over the next few weeks. The community session, we thought, okay, do we want to bog down the community with a bunch of sessions? I think the decision is that, yes, we do, because we want to hear conversations. We think that like the station style town hall is incredibly useful, but for us, I think we want to have more of a lively discussion, traditional town hall, inviting folks, and we'll design the activities that way. But we're hoping to do that in March, because I think that that's going to really help us to do the cultural asset mapping, which is primarily done by the residents here. And then secondly, understand like what are the strategies and what are the hopes for economic impact in the future. So we will take the scenarios from FS21 and then make sure that ASBB has their own add on to those scenarios, so that when we build the scenario analysis for the potential impact, which is a key part of doing economic impact studies, we're going to make sure that, those scenarios are coming from the residents, like their opinions are heard and they're in the scenarios. So that's kind of where we are at, very much on the data part, modeling part. I think once we start, getting the results from this study, we'll go on to ours, and we're gonna have to come out here in summer and talk with the businesses, and some of the tourists as well. So we'll try and do that in summer when we're in the heat of tourism. So Mark and Laura, like, we'll work together to figure out the logistics. But I do appreciate the comments on the town hall piece. I've taken some notes, so those suggestions would be good. So that's a brief update. If there's any questions, happy to answer them now.
Not so much question, but a comment. Obviously, you're gathering information from Nova Scotia Tourism,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. But I think I speak just for myself, and I'll let anybody else speak for themselves, that we're looking for some additional ways in which to gather statistical data, because I think that there's a lot of missed areas and missed components in our community that information is not being gathered.
Yeah.
So I have some ideas as well. So once we move into speaking with you directly, I'd like to put forth some of those ideas and see if we can come up with a community initiative and how we can get better data than what just Nova Scotia Tourism
Awesome.
gathers.
We'd
Yeah.
love that. I think that one of the things we really talked about with Mark was like putting a big importance on the UNESCO heritage. Like, are people coming here to see just that? My gut sense is that yes, a lot of people are. We're not capturing that in any way. And as a result, we can't advocate, like, let's help pay for the town of Lunenburg's streets, because a lot of people are using it for this UNESCO heritage, yet you're not getting the funding to, pay and upkeep these infrastructure. So we'll certainly would love that help on the survey piece, so we can get to the heart. So thank you.
I have like an idea of, like, I run the visitor center. So if we had a digital entry exit kind of survey, that it was like just a few questions that we have in a big screen that's
Yeah.
on at the VIC, but also any accommodations person,
Yeah.
or maybe it's a tap and be code on a restaurant table that they scan, and it's just a few questions and, specific to what you're looking for, just so that we can get a wide range, and we're getting all scopes of people coming into the community.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. I'll reach out to Laura and Mark, and we can kind of book that in. Well, I guess I'll follow your lead on the logistics, but yeah, happy to do that. I think we ought to do our own survey and town halls, both for the scenarios as well as like the asset mapping, which is an important exercise for this study. So yeah, awesome. Thank you, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you. The town is beautifully decorated, so I'll be here in Christmas for sure. Hopefully to buy a tree this weekend too. Like, there's not any Yarmouth, so thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Manny. Yeah, so I guess at this point, I mean, I just wanted to discuss a couple of things more on the administrative side of how the meetings are held. I've just been getting some feedback. One of the words that keeps popping up is just the formality of the setting. I think we've had, what is this, third meeting we've had in this chamber, which is great. I think it's pretty much where I was expecting to be at, but it sort of necessitates almost a committee style of formality. And I know this is, I mean, the goal with this working group by design, from the get-go was to create a bit of flexibility there to work towards some end products with these two deliverables with the cultural tourism plan and the economic impact study. So so I think at this point we were, and out of respect for, you know, proprietary information and methodology and stuff with the consultants, there's a bit of a necessity to move into a bit more of a workshop type of mode for a period of time at this stage. So I want, and I know Amy had mentioned that too in the presentation. So that's sort of what we were contemplating or hoping to do starting in the new year. So I just wanted to bounce that off you guys to see if you had any ideas there, thoughts on that, how that would work out, maybe different location. And yeah, so to that end as well, I have Trevor's kindly. So we have the entire community development team here today, which is myself, Laura, who's our heritage officer, and Trevor, who is our development officer / planner. So Trevor, I was kind of hoping, so this is a bit of an idea proposal, but Trevor had done a bit of work on this in the last little while just to get it up and running. You may have gotten an email yesterday inadvertently from us. Just because it is, I mean, there's a lot of players involved here. We got the whole group, and we have the two consultancies. So, and then even our little team as well, as far more on the administrative side of things, it can get a bit unwieldy, the communications and inadvertently leaving people out, that kind of thing. So we thought maybe what we should do is just, we have access to this with the town and we're paying for it. It's, the software is the Microsoft One.
So of course it worked right before the session and I'm not being able to connect to the Chromecast here.
Oh, okay.
But what we use, if you don't mind me for a second, I'll give a little verbal.
Sure. Well, actually, Trevor, I was kind of hoping that you could, I mean, if you're able to get that up at some point.
Sure. Give me a
or-
second. I'll see if I can
Yeah,
fire
sure.
it up here.
But basically we wanted to set up a little bit of a hub where it's easy for folks to just sort of, we can have a chat going on. It's a place where we could throw documents in, you know, we have the terms of reference and all that kind of stuff too, but maybe there's been a few instances where, you know, Tom, you've suggested some articles to read, that kind of thing. We could throw that on there too, a bit of a message board, easy access to each other so that nothing kind of gets lost. But so Trevor had kindly set that up. So I was just wondering thoughts on that as well. More of a, you know, interactive type of tool to carry out this work, because like I said, it is a little bit different. We are trying to, from a committee, that's why they called it working groups, my understanding from the get-go. So I mean, we're working towards some deliverables. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe if anybody has input on that or feedback, interested to know from our point of view. Yeah, sure.
It's really called the Working Group in Progress, I think.
That's right.
And I appreciate that. I think it would be really good to have a central repository, let's say, of the information that's getting together now, and especially as a counselor who has like 6 files on the go, right? But I also wanted to point out that even though this was seems formal, it has really benefited all of us in getting to know each other on the group, into being more casual on the street and coming together to be effective as a working group. So I would hate to see that disappear.
Sorry, I should have pointed out as well. I don't anticipate, so we would still, that's not to say that we won't meet like this again. It would just be, in addition to that, we'd have this other more, less formalized, environment, and, type of atmosphere where we can kind of like roll up the sleeves a little bit and, spitball ideas, that kind of thing. So, yeah, so I wanted to make that clear too. So it's not that this is just, and I know, and I understand the need for public awareness and transparency and all that, as far as, especially with key decisions of or recommendations that the working group's making. So that's not to say that this would be out the window.
I guess my
think.
next question is, I'm always the privacy advocate.
Yeah,
And we seem to be overwhelmed with FOIPOP requests in the last couple of years. Would all of this new status be subject to privacy? Could there be reminders to people we're not making decisions on the?
yeah, oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, it's, I mean, and I want to make that clear too. It's not to just go under the cover of night and do things, I think we're all on the same page that way. We want to be as transparent as possible. But also, I think it's a best practice, at least from my point of view, and that's why I'm throwing it out there too. It's not.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's an idea. I thought it would be useful at this point in time, like you said, up to this point. This is great. But once we get into the weeds with detailed information, proprietary information, with the consultancies, I just think it might be appropriate just to pivot a little bit.
I agree with you, Mark. I think that we were entrusted to be a part of this group as community leaders, as business leaders. And I think that to have a true good working sense, that we should have the freedom of conversation and not so formal. Sometimes when we're in the formal setting, that takes up more time than if we're just sitting around a table and having creative conversations, and I know that museum would be happy to host a session, and so would the Board of Trade. And I'm sure there's many other people within this organization that have a small facility room that we could maybe go from each individual place and have those informal discussions with our consultants.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day too, we're going to have these very public documents too. So we're working towards an end as well. So that's all going to be, how we get there. Be a little creative with that. It's just, it just might serve us well, though. That's what I was thinking.
We've got a really unique group here that we all came together, all with very unique and different skill sets. Like, this is not by accident that we're all here together. So it's important that we have the ability for free flowing ideas, especially with some of us that are more of the creative side, where we have also some others that are more of the administrative side. And on occasion, it's just nice not to be videotaped while having a free flowing conversation, I would say. We've got a lot of talent in this room, so we want to be using that the best way we can. And obviously, once we have a shaped vision, I would say that's probably a great time to share it with other people.
I wasn't able to get Teams to cast, but I was able to get the website component of it to cast. If you'd like to, yeah. Well, Frank, my apologies. You will not see this. So hopefully my laptop shows up here on this other input in a second. There we go. So as Mark was saying, we use the Microsoft SharePoint Office 365 platform here for all of our internal work. And what we're proposing is essentially to start a team site under that, which will be what you're looking at here on this side of this menu. It'll look a little different in Microsoft Teams, but essentially this will be available under the Site tab in Microsoft Teams, which I'd love to be able to show you. Some of you may be familiar with Teams for video conferencing, but it does a whole lot more than that. And that's the functionality we'll be primarily looking at. So you can see this is a news item here. So we'll have news. You have through Teams the ability to have chat. So if somebody wants to jot a quick note down about something to the team, it can go out, and even if somebody's not online, next time they log in, they'll be notified. We have all of our documents, so there'll be a way to get in there. And so just for now, we've uploaded a few things like our agenda packages that we've had, the consultant proposals, the meeting minutes, and just the terms of reference. But that's where all of the working documents will go for review. And rather than emailing, it'll cut down on the emails of large files. They'll all be sitting there for you to read and review at your leisure. So we'll keep it simple, but it'll be sort of a one-stop shop for contacting the team. And that's about it. Any questions? Is there anybody uncomfortable with technology around the table? I knew Robin's hand was going up. Yeah, I guarantee it's not as painful as its first looks. So if you can do email, you can certainly figure out Microsoft Teams in this. So, and I'll volunteer to be the limited tech support for this functionality. Anyway, I'll stop talking now. But if anyone has any questions, let me know.
I just jump in. I think it's great to have all of these various avenues employed. I think I am one of the tech challenged folks, so it may be a while till I could get comfortable having a chat in this format, but it's certainly I've used similar kinds of platforms previously, so I'm sure we'd get the hang of it, but I wouldn't want that again, you know, to just be the only source. It has its limitations as well, or it's only visiting some of the other sites in town, I think would be, you know, conducive to helpful conversation on the topics we're asked to weigh in on.
Yeah, and I should point out too, I mean, I know when you set these things up, you got a bit of the creep of the technology into your, so the expectation from my point of view would not be, you know, okay, you necessarily, someone types something into the chat and everybody has to feel the need to, you know, respond right away or respond at all, really. It was just more, you know, obviously we'll still have these forum, like, you know, this type of forum, there's, you know, the workshop, town halls, everything that's coming down the pipe that way, but just an additional ease of access, I guess, and ease of access to each other and in our different roles. But yeah, we're happy to help. Like if anybody has some issues with even setting it up, just let us know and we're happy to help with that. Does anybody have any concerns or thoughts on that? I mean, so it's been an hour. I know I set 2 hours. That doesn't mean we have to go the full 2 hours. That was just to leave some time just in case, you know. But please feel free to provide feedback.
Just for clarity, who will be the members of the group?
Well, that's also up to you as well. My initial thought was all of us here. And then if the consultants were interested as well, you know, I thought maybe they could join as well, but leaving that open.
Session. Detail. The findings of the key stakeholder interviews, your interviews, the community session, the community survey, so that for strategic priorities that have somewhat surfaced, we get to see whether they really align well with a whole lot more strength or whether there are shifts. It's really an in-depth overview of what our key findings are. In partnership with that, those best practice reviews, you know, those areas that you could potentially learn from and model. So we'd like to invite all of you to a nice working group session in a culturally rich environment that would take place a week or so after we have our community session, which I think would be a wonderful way to test how does this work for everyone. But so that if I want to sit beside the two of you, I don't have to bring a chair over and put between two wonderful council stations. And you get to see me not quite as formalized as I am now.
Not to interrupt, but poor Frank can't hear any of this. Could you
Right.
come up to the podium and give a brief synopsis of what you just said?
Allison, sorry, I just wanted to, so did you mean also who would be, I may have misinterpreted part of this online forum? Okay, sorry, I was just saying that maybe the this little hub that we've created with Microsoft, if you'd be interested in joining that, just for ease of, yeah. No, that's all good. It's all useful. Great. So would Manny as well? Okay, so Frank, it does sound like both consultants would be interested in joining that group as well, so.
I think to Alice's point, though, I think we're missing one member. I think we still, where the election happened, we have now 2 counselors, which actually frees up, I believe, 1 seat for this committee.
Yeah, so if I can just pipe in there, I thought too, you're right. So there is technically a vacancy there, and I was asked, what were my thoughts, administratively, like, to open that up, because the way this group was set up as well was everybody on here was approved. There was a process, an application process, and approved by council at the time. So there might be a level of administration that to reopen that again.
Forget what I said.
Okay. It's and it's not even just it's a good point. But from my point of view, I do feel like we have a good group here with like a lot of.
I think Allison still represents the community
Yeah.
member regardless if she's a counselor, she still has.
I'm on the board at Harborview Haven, and we had a legal consultant come in, and he said that I did not lose my status as a community person by becoming a counselor. So
Great.
that's there. I can.
I
try to
do
fill that.
feel like there was a bit of a gap previous where we didn't have counselors on this working group, but now I think that's now that that's been filled, I think that's great. But as far as added value to reopen it, and I know it would take a significant amount of time for us in ComDev to run that, I just think maybe, and the work's already started. So it was just, I mean,
The point has been made and it's settled as far as I'm
Okay,
concerned. We
Robin.
can definitely move on.
does anyone else have some thoughts on that though too? I mean, obviously it's not really my decision, but.
I was gonna have a different question, but my thought on that is that given the timeline involved with getting a new community member in the process, I think we're well represented as we are. My query or request, as it is, because I'm not always physically in Lunenburg, is to get a sense of what our meetings are going to be, because I find when I'm dialed in, it's solely a listening process, or primarily a listening process, not an engaged process. So to the extent that we could have a sense of when our meetings would be over the next 2 to 3 months, I could make some plans, because I will be away certainly for January. But I can change my plans for February and March if we're going to have in-person meetings, which I would prefer to attend in person.
Point well taken. I actually meant to discuss that a little bit as well. Part of that hub as well, I think, is we'd have access to a calendar. So that is something that I'm trying to sort out. Details with Manny, Amy, and Mary, just as far as when those sessions are going to be, expectations over. I'm trying to map out basically up through spring my schedule too. So I think right now, sort of where I expected to be a little bit. It was a little bit. I don't want to say disorganized, but we need to reach this point to now. I think that we can achieve a bit of clarity that way with the calendar. So I think that would be part of that. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to set up that hub as well. It's just that everyone could do that. They could have input, whether it works or not, and know well in advance so you can plan around it.
Jump in just for a quick second.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I wonder if where we have everyone here today, where we would like to get some feedback just to keep our project on track. If the week of January 20th could be a time when we could have that first working session style meeting. If people can check their calendars and let us know if that's a terrible time. It would be ideal for us, but it would be great to kind of lock that down today. And then some of our team members are away right now. So we just asked for this week in order to convene with our team. before proposing a couple dates that align with our deliverables and when we'll have stuff to show you. We don't want to meet for no reason, right? So anyway, that's just our perspective. I just wanted to share that. But if the week of January 20th is generally good for everyone in the room, perhaps we could plan some logistics around that. Not today, but just throwing that out there.
Our chair has a busy week that, and she's instrumental here, I think. As well as being a chair.
The previous week or the week after, I would be much better for scheduling purposes. For me, I'm away from the 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, and our Lunenburg Board of Trade AGM more likely will be on the 22nd. So I would be available on the 20th and the 21st, but that's, you know.
You might be meeting out, but
Okay.
if we're aiming to have the community session mid-January, perhaps the week after that week, I would assume the week of 27th. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but that would be our second proposal, just to kind of keep things moving along. Okay.
Again, if when you speak, if you could turn your mics on, so Frank can hear.
I will see what I can do to rearrange some things in my schedule to make the week of the 20th work.
Maybe this would be the very first tool we could use on, yeah.
Great suggestion, Allison.
No, scheduling is always hard with a group this size too, and everyone's very busy. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. I see this as maybe something that we could work through as the first sort of pilot to see how this hub/calendar works.
Joanne, are you gone the whole month of January? Okay. And adjourn the meeting at 11:09.
Thank you all.
Bye, Frank.
Bye, Frank.
Nice to see everyone from a distance, and all the best for this wonderful festive season.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Likewise.